it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, how do I overcome, or how does one overcome major disappointment? Major disappointment in the outcome of a relationship with maybe someone who was not forthright, completely clear in their communication, and could be narcissistic or psychopathic. Now, depending on the nature of the relationship and depending on, the sort of preparation or sort of the beginning of the relationship, and then that sort of dictates the outcome. But oftentimes there is a lack of awareness or a sort of an outsider sort of position that one can take, that a narcissist will sort of fend off any sort of opportunity for a certain type of open and honest communication, and meaning being open, honest, making sure that the relationship is set up on equal terms, that you are okay with everything, that you're well informed, that there's open, clear, and honest communication. And especially with a narcissist, when you're dealing with someone that has a very sort of large ego, meaning all that they see is what they desire and nothing else. All that they see is their outcome, and it does not matter who is there in the chair, the kitchen, the office, as long as their needs are getting met, that's all that they are concerned about. That's all that wires their gears. And oftentimes people get then sort of, geared up or in relationship with these people, and they set a false hope or expectation for how the relationship is going to evolve or manifest or grow or become into. So they will set a false expectation, wanting you to sort of believe in some certain absolutes and not to consider certain realistic or what could be known as ordinary outcomes. A narcissist does not like to speak about sort of in a certain reality, practicality, or ordinary, or what you might consider just, a basic common sense level of communication. They don't like to operate there. It makes them uncomfortable. So they'd like to just swish and swoon right over it if they can, because all they want to do is get to the good stuff with them. And unfortunately, there's a certain amount of, I would say, false hope or false expectation that can be set up for people in the beginning of the love bombing of the relationship, meaning when the grounds are made or primed up to set forth in the beginning of the relationship. And what are the expectations? Oftentimes with a narcissist, they are not realistic. They are not practical. They are not based sort of on a more objective or balanced sense of discourse or communication, if you know what I mean. It is set up on a sort of inflated, grandiose, or sort of self-aggrandizing sort of relationship in the love bombing. In other words, you just met Cupid on their wings. You just met, a dove on a heart. I mean, like, you literally have just that sort of comfort and trust and reliance, and then you sort of make important decisions with this person based on trust, but oftentimes people don't always check out relationships with these people in a sort of thorough manner that they, should have, or have, thought about certain red flags or things that could have been present that they could have looked at and it become more objective based. But the narcissist usually wants to steer away from those conversations, those sort of practicalities, those sort of outcomes, for fear that they could look less than special, less than, miraculous, less than whatever it is that they are oftentimes maybe gloating themselves up to be. So we're talking about someone who has a pathological sense of self-importance. In other words, you can't bring them down from cloud 98. They are the untouchable, the unreachable. It's communication is always set up based on the outcome of their desires. It does not matter what really the other people that are surrounding really have to do. As long as you are what they consider a supply, and this is just in that jargon, and it really sets up for a lot of people of disappointment because they sort of promise them this sort of relationship, and then people are very disappointed and let down in that, and they feel very deflated, and oftentimes their expectations are not at all where they should be. So there's this crashing divergence of reality. It's kind of like you feel you're almost breaking up with your best life or your best self, or where's my best life. It's kind of like you've just broken up a relationship with the way you thought your life was going to be. You haven't, a crystalline image looking forward of this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to proceed, and this is how that's going to proceed, and I'm going to, and then when you find that there's these other pitfalls, oftentimes the narcissist, just is not there to speak to you about resolving things and, keeping things practical and real and on the level and on the real with you. So a lot of people end up getting into relationships with these people who will set up pathological or unreal false expectations, false promises, unmet goals, unmet obligations, lack of accountability, passive aggressive communication. Oops, my dog ate the auto registration. I'm gonna have, you're gonna have to do this. I mean, just these things that just sort of, things are on the rough, things are on the struggle. So oftentimes there can be a real disappointment for people. And if that disappointment is set up by the false expectations of a narcissist, then identify it and connect it as such. And realize that you, at the practical, need to be able to validate and emphasize the value of having a balanced perspective. Usually in the relationship before with a narcissist, usually there was these extremes that were valued. It was thrilling. It was this. It was that. A lot of this sort of, big talk, but no action. And I mean, this is just very typical. And depending on their specific needs, you are like a supply on their journey, like a jug of water for them to drink up while they're on their way up their mountain. So if you really understand what supply is, you're helping supply them for their journey and nothing more, and they don't care that your backpack is full of goodies and whatever it is that you need to make it up your hike on the journey with them as well. So usually there's a lack of sort of growth together. And so that's where this disappointment can be, because you have to proceed with a new vision and a new map looking forward. Meaning, you had a sort of a crystallized, or what you thought was a set vision of how the relationship was going to go. Fairy tale or this great outcome, but what happens when you find out that the outcome wasn't as expected? What do you do when the outcome, you feel that you're falling short, that you were not set up or prepared or sort of advised, and sort of find yourself feeling very disappointed and discouraged and almost even angry, which is a very, self-debasing sort of energy that you don't want to direct inward, because that's, you're giving too much into that sort of chaos, which, you're not about the chaos. You're about the calm and order. So you have to be able to understand a little bit of a reroute and coming back to a sense of self, that it's there in the best place, the strongest place for you, which is being centered and focused. And knowing that that is the area of motivation where you have to connect at your deepest, warmest level in your best acknowledgement of applying what you know from your past experience and in your environment, what is then most adaptive for you? what is going to make you the strongest, and what's going to make you live in your best vital way. What choices and decisions can you make moment by moment on the daily, day in and day out, that give you results, that don't deflate you, that don't live, the disappointment that this relationship didn't live up to the expectations or what you feel it should have been. Because if you always live in that disappointment, you're just re-energizing the rut. You're just digging the rut even deeper, as they say. You're just putting on the gas when, there is no traction. So that's sometimes an inner directed chaos, which Freud had a term for that, which was different from the Eros, which was like the life energy moving forward, which is a great topic, if I can pull it up here. But so it's like not to scapegoat or sabotage yourself in those moments of disappointment. You have to recalculate and get re-energized for your vision moving forward. You have to reignite that and, come to terms with applying what you have learned. You might have to do some work and a little bit of effort. It's more sort of, getting up, onto those little assertions and understanding that you're not set back, you're right where you should be, and have gratitude for where you have come. Whoa, that was a really interesting, rough, bumpy ride. And if you can look back with fascination and intrigue and nostalgia and have a nostalgic and appreciation of it, with sort of a glean of personal connection and personal growth, that is the most empowered and masterful outcome. And realize all the opportunity of all the positives that were sort of interjected in that leg of the journey for you. What came to your aid? What, synchronicities occurred? What little glimmers of hope did you actually have that you own, despite what these other people had not misrepresented, but maybe, sometimes in the narcissist relationship, others aren't fully informed as to what is going on. There's this lack of communication due to a lack of empathy from the narcissist. So, in other words, if the communication does not serve them to an outcome, in other words, getting whatever it is that they want, then they're not going to make the call. They're not going to make the email, if there's nothing in it for them. But if it's something in it for the both of you, then there is that healthier connection. But oftentimes, that disappointment wouldn't be there if the appropriate vision were set up to begin with. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can realize that there is a way to sort of transcend and bridge that gap. To realize, whoa, my expectations were set up by A, B, and C, and D here. And a lot of that oftentimes isn't founded in reality, being practical, realistic, common sense, solid foundation, and it being, valued and for the strength of that. So it had been devalued. In other words, when you're dealing with these people, you're falling in love with or working with an inflated persona that is not the real, authentic. There's something it has to pretend to be. And sure, somebody might be not feeling well, and then they put on a happy face. We're talking about a completely different dimension. We're talking about level 17 of facade. We're talking about, something that they have to put on as a show or a sham or as if. And oftentimes misleading others is part of it. Because they feel that they can get away with it, or it makes them feel, I would say, more strong and mighty just because they feel they can do that all the others are expendable, and they just sort of have that greed train going, if you will, from others emotionally. So other times people feel sort of deflated, like they've been taken the hope out. Well, install the hope back in. You've got it right here. Pat yourself right there in the core, your solar plexus. I've got this. and I create my masterful future that brings me comfort and joy. And in this, I take solace and calm. And with that, you are then able to acknowledge and value yourself enough to apply your lessons learned. In other words, if you value yourself enough, then you'll go ahead and eat the better food. If you value yourself enough, then you'll go up and do the exercise. If you value yourself enough, you'll go and you'll have good prayer time. If you value yourself enough, you'll sensitize yourself to what is conducive for a happy life, and not that it's based on ego or the need to impress others, but just that it exists within you. You're not trying to become something, you are something. And that is wonderful, and that is the diamond that will emerge from the rough once you allow it to shine in all its multi-dimensional features and factors. And you can see that once you allow yourself to be. And that's very much tied to reestablishing the expectations and goals and valuing yourself enough to have the belief and faith and trust, and do this with consistency and regularity enough for it to catch. So you have to back it up consistently, making the good decisions. What could have been a slightly better decision? And find, what slightly better decision could I make? What slightly better decision could I do right now? What would make this even more comfortable? What would make me even more calm? What would make me even more sharp? What would make me even more relaxed? What would make me, feel even a little bit more comfortable or cozy or warm and friendly and complete? So I talk about resensitizing, things that you can add, scents, visions, words and statements, different feelings, fabrics, colors, and things in your environment that reinforce that reality, that gives you that really deep level of strength and connection to your future moving forward, that really is based in a balanced sense of present decision making. Little micro baby steps, like little teeny decisions like that, go to build some very big steps. So you can't discredit yourself for those micro mini important decisions. Those really do build, and these really do have value. And the incentive is when you begin to reinforce it enough, and then you are able to experience the difference. You're able to feel an outcome, but you have to stay with it long enough, and be and not judge, not evaluate, and just and find what you do value and then reinforce that, all the better. But really igniting that in that present moment, and then just sort of shuffling away, just discarding those expectations that were maybe not realistic, pragmatic, or what have you. Even though certain things are, they are. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace and strength within, peace and strength without, and peace be with you. Have a beautiful day.